The Five OOOH Podcast.
Five OOOH Podcast.
Hey everybody, we're back at the 5 Podcast. It's your host Haley, and today we are here with Bev. This girl is a former law enforcement officer who has experienced quite a bit during her decade-long career. As the youngest of three from immigrant parents, learning English from her older siblings in school, Bev wanted to live her American dream and pursue law enforcement. Bev has now taken her life story and turned it into helping others as a grief, trauma, and love coach. She is a keynote speaker at various mental health conferences and a master's degree in social work. She will tell us her story now and how her worst day did not dictate her everyday. So, for our listeners who don't know you yet, can you give us a just quick bio about yourself, and then we'll peel back the layers and get to everything we talked about above and more. So you have
Yeah,
the floor.
for sure. Haley, first off, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And well, just a little about me. Yeah, I come from immigrant parents. They came from El Salvador. I was born in DC. After that, my dad was in the military. So we grew up very militant at home. Like discipline was military stuff. Like he would make us do PT and all those things. And for whatever reason,
Stop it.
yeah, dude, like our punishment was push-ups. It was doing that kind of stuff, running.
I
Yeah.
love it.
I loved it too. Like I was so in it and I was like, I just want to do that. And I remember watching the movie Angel Eyes with J-Lo and I was like, oh my God, I want to be her. Like I want to do that, and I just eventually it was either the military or police because I was not like the best student. So I was like, I'm gonna go to the military. However, I did get accepted to school, but after 2 years at the University of Maryland in College Park, I was like, no, I want to like be the best of the best of the best. So yeah, I tried out for, PG County and they hired me. I did 10 years with them. And the rest was history. And here we are after my traumatic incident. I started some healing and I was like, I need to give back to the guys and gals that are still out there, the retired ones. I felt like I had got some answers to the test, if you will, and I was like, I can't keep these. Like I cannot gatekeep these skills. So that's when I started like my business and then I was like, there's a fine line between helping and hurting. So let me get the education. So that's why I'm pursuing school. I want to go to my doctorate. And now I'm here.
Honestly, your story is, I mean, we met each other at Washington, D.C. in Police Week, and my friend was like, "Oh, you have to hear her story. Like, it's
Girl.
incredible. You need to get her on your podcast." And like, I learned about your story, but then obviously, when you sent me more information, I learned even more about you. And not only I thought your story was incredible before, but learning more about you, you've really been through a lot. And I just think it's going to resonate with a lot of my listeners and obviously people around the world. So I'm just excited to share everything that you've been through with everyone. So, what, okay, so you kind of said what inspired you to be a police officer, but how did you like take the leap and apply? I know you went to school for um criminal justice. So you're like between the military and police, like how did you make that decision?
So what it was I was working at, you remember Nextel, like the chirp phones
Yeah.
back in the day? So I was working at a Nextel. So I was a full-time student at University of Maryland, and there's a mall, the mall at Prince George's now. And so I was working there, and this girl comes in, and we used to give discount to law enforcement. And this girl comes in, she shows like this badge, and I was like, man, like that's pretty, that's kind of badass. Like, who do you work for? And she did like security, and she was like, we're hiring. So I started working with this like security place at night, and I would go in from like 2 a.m. to like 5 a.m. and then I would go to school and then I would go to Nextel. Like I was just working all these jobs. But when I was working that security job, I learned a lot of things I didn't like, and I learned a lot of things I did like. What I didn't like is how people with power treat humans. I was like, that's not cool. So I was like, and if I can be a person with power and treat people right? Like that's like dignified. And then I liked the tactics of it. I liked, having the taser and all the things and the bulletproof vest. And I was like, no, this is my jam. Like I need to do this. And I remember talking to another friend, and she was like, "Oh, my homegirl just applied to Prince George's County Police Department. She didn't get it. Like she didn't pass the written test or something." And I was like, "How do you apply for that?" She was like, "Just go to the website. Like they're always hiring." And that very night, I went home, I looked at the website, sure enough, they were hiring, and I just like, I'm doing it, and I applied. It was just like that, yeah, I just did it.
And how long did it take you to like get into the academy
You
from
know,
the day you applied?
like, considering some people, it took them a while, but for me, they did my background, like, we call it a blue book. Like, our blue book is the thing with, your records and all your background and all your references and neighbors and people you dated. So I did that thing, and it took my investigator like a year, did the poly, did all the thing, and like within a year, they were like, you're invited to join our next academy session. I was like, right on. I mean, because
Yeah,
I had like no record of doing anything. I'd never held a gun. Like I didn't, I just didn't do much of like anything really in the streets like that.
right, right. No, and it's crazy because I feel like now the process is a little bit faster, but 10
Really,
years ago, a year
you can
was
make
very fast,
yeah, yeah.
very fast. It took me like 9 months, and that was like fast too. So what's your background in policing? What like units or roles did you work in? And maybe tell us what was your favorite?
That's so cool. Cause I didn't do anything but patrol.
Wait, I do patrol. I love patrol.
Listen, I loved it. Look, I loved it. I didn't mind it, but it did take a toll on me after a while, you know what I mean? But I did so out of my 10 years, I did do 1 year of detective work. And it was like the lower level investigations. So if someone got shot but didn't die, like if they die, then I have to call homicide,
Right.
things like that. So theft under, so they weren't the felony thefts. So I did those investigations. I did that for a year and I enjoyed investigative work, but I needed to be out. My thing, I couldn't just sit behind a screen. Like I'm a shaker, I'm a mover. Like I needed to move. So, but I do remember after, I don't know, maybe like 3, 4 years of being in the streets, I was like, all right, I need to change of pace. So I put in for homicide, gang, narcotics, aviation. I tried out for our SWAT team 3 times. I didn't get any of it.
You tried out for the SWAT team 3 times.
Yes,
That's bomb. That
did.
is so cool.
I couldn't get up that fucking rope. But anyways,
Right.
um,
I couldn't even get an inch, so you're good.
yeah, so that's the one thing, but it was just me against me because I would train on the rope just to pass because I knew that that was my hardest thing, and I would climb up it and climb down and climb up it, and that would be my workout for that day. But come tryouts, yeah, I would just psych myself out, and I just couldn't do it.
It
I
sounds like you liked patrol so much because of your like initial mission of why you wanted to be a police officer. It's just to like to help people on the ground and like just to be on the front lines of like treating people with respect and like having people see someone, talk to someone in a uniform in a position of power who's kind and respectful and can relate to you. That's why I like it too. Um, because I feel like when you leave a call, you're like, okay, I think that they had a good experience.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. Like I want the community because we need to bridge that gap. We're always
Yeah,
gonna forever in the battle of bridging that gap. It's always gonna
yeah,
be that way. It's gonna be worse, it's gonna be better, but it's always gonna be there. But one
yeah.
of the things that I recognized in my years of patrol is that for whatever reason, once people move up rank, because we all started patrol. Everybody starts in patrol. That major or chief that you're working for started in patrol. But for
Hmm.
whatever reason, once they get there, they forget patrol. Like they forget what it's like to be in patrol. And now they're mandating
100%.
overtimes or they're mandating like or they're just treating like, dude, don't act like you don't know what it's like down here and treating like I
Hmm.
get it, shit rolls downhill, but look who you're stepping on. Like these are your frontliners and you're treating them like this way. Like that's not cool. So that was another thing I noticed, which also wanted made me want to promote. So I did make it up at least to corporal.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So we're gonna get into a traumatic experience. I just want to warn my listeners that we're going to talk about some deep stuff. Um, but before, and this is a question I didn't send you, but I realized once I was going over it, I really wanted to start from the beginning.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to know just how you met Jakai. Because I know that you were dating, so you had to have met before the day we're about to talk about. So before we talk about that day and deep dive, and I tell everyone about Jakai and what happened, I just want to know how you guys met and when you met.
That's such a good question. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm like, wait,
So,
we're not talking about your first date. Like, I want to know about how you met.
yeah, and my rule was like not to date a police officer. That was like my rule, but what
Girl.
with each other it is what it is. Um, so yeah, I ended up that year that I was a detective, I ended up going to my office, that day and opening my emails and found out that I had gotten transferred. Just got transferred. That's just they just do it like that. And I wasn't very well liked, and I know why, because yeah, I was very sassy, if you will. So whatever. I was like, it is what it is. And they were sending me to Oxon Hill, which is, he was a rookie out there. I didn't know him. I didn't know anybody in Oxon Hill. I'd never worked that district before. I didn't know nothing about it. So I had to start there effective, immediately. And I was transferred there for their midnight shift. However, before they started midnights, they all had to qualify at the gun range. So they were like, tomorrow you're not going to come back in here. You're no longer a detective. Somebody's going to take over your case, but you have to go to the gun range and qualify with your new squad before you start midnights with them. I'm like, all right, cool. Like I was a good shot. I like shooting. So I remember going to the gun range and my homeboy, he was going to become a detective and I was going to take his position in patrol. And he was like, we're at the gun range, we're loading our mag. You know how it is. We're about to get ready for day fire. And then my homeboy looks at me. He's like, yo, Perez. And I'm like, what's up? And he's like, look, when I leave, make sure you take care of my rookie. And he like points at his rookie. And I promise you, it's like the lights of heaven just shine on this beautiful man.
Oh my God, I got the chills.
He's gorgeous, like Lance Gross gorgeous. And so next thing you know, I see him and I see him like just loading up his mag like nervously, because he's the rookie. So everybody's watching him. You know how it is. And then I just remember looking at him and saying, yo, rookie. And he looks up at me, like Jakai looks up at me, like, what? And I'm like, I'm gonna take care of you, all right? And I gave him like a little winky wink. And he just like shoved it off. He was like, whatever, and went back to loading his mag. Like he had no time. He did not care. Fast forward, I'm now on the squad. I'm the supervisor on the squad, one of the supervisors on the squad, and I had a group chat going just for anything that we might need to keep up with. Well, Jakai decided to text me outside of the group chat one day. Hey, I made some dinner. Would you like to come over? I said, number one, never.
Whoa.
Yeah, girl, real bold. So I said, number one, do not text me outside of the group chat. Number two, no. He sends me a picture of the food, and I'm like, what time? No, I didn't go. I didn't go. After that, he was very clever on how, I guess, our first date, if you will. He calls me one day and he's like, hey, can you help me at the range? He was a nervous shooter, but he was a good shot. So I was like, as a supervisor, as a person that likes to shoot and can shoot, I took him to the gun range. We fired a couple rounds. After that, he was like, "Do you want to go get something to eat?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah." So we go get something to eat, and that was the start of it all right there. That was technically our first date, if you will, I guess.
And how many years before the incident was that?
3. We were together for 3 years.
Okay. 3
Mhm,
years.
mhm.
And you guys had a lot of fun together. I could see it on your face.
Dude, like I look back and I'm like, is there anything that I would have wanted to do with him that I didn't get to do? Like, or anything I would have wanted to say that I didn't get to say that he didn't know about how I felt about him? No. We went to so many different places. We went to El Salvador. Like he met my family in
Oh
El
my
Salvador. My
gosh.
grandma
Wow.
that is now gone met him. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's the good part. I mean, I guess it's hard, but when you think about it, it's like the fact that you said, you said it all, you did it all. Like that is the beauty in it
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. I'm not left with any like, oh, why did you
Questions.
this or
Yeah.
did he know that? No, he knew. He knew how I felt about him. There's no question. Yeah.
So before we begin, I do want to take a moment to honor who we've just been talking about is Jakai. He's Detective Jakai David Colson. He was of Prince George County Police Department in Maryland. He was shot and killed responding to an active shooter by one of the district stations. He is survived by his parents, brother, grandparents, goddaughters, and his girlfriend, Bev. So, if you can remember, tell us about the morning of March 13th and what your day began like.
Yeah, so the beginning of the day was crazy because he had an overtime assignment and I was working a special assignment. And I always think like we both really could have just not went to work that day.
So, that day, you both weren't like technically you didn't have to be at work.
He didn't. I still had to go to this special assignment, but I could have really like I don't care, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, but he was working overtime, so they had a no-knock warrant with the SWAT team, the narcotic guys. And he was like, "Look, this is a case I've been working on. I mean, I have to go to it." And so, but it was overtime. It was a rainy Sunday, and I remember him taking pictures of me while I was sleeping. And I woke up and he was like, "Look at your phone." And I'm like, "What? Good morning. Like, what is the problem?" He's like, "Look at your phone. Look at your phone." And I looked at my phone and he's just like taking pictures of me sleeping. And I'm like, "You're such a weirdo." And and then he said, "Yeah," he was like, I got your ring." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "We're gonna get married." And I was like, "If that's your way of proposing, then I say yes." He was like, "We're getting married." I'm like, "Okay." And then one of my relatives was having a cookout. So calls him, not me. This is my family. Calls him, not me. It's like, "Hey, bro, you coming to the cookout? Come after work. We'll throw back some beers, whatever, whatever." And he's like being funny. He was like, "Does Bev have to come?" And I can hear my relative on the phone with him, like, "Fine, I guess, bring her." And I'm like, "Dude, whatever." And like we're in bed and he's having these conversations and he's like, "All right." They get off the phone. He's like, "All right, so after you get off, let's meet up at so and so's house for the cookout." And I'm like, "Cool. I'll see you there." He was like, "Man, I'm hungry. Me too." He was like, "Ooh, how about we order some chicken from that Peruvian place?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I have to go, I have to check. I have to go to roll call." He was like, "I'll pick it up and then I'll just come drop it off, as I go south because he's gonna pass the station." He was like, "As I go south, I'll just stop by your station, and I'll stop by your roll call and drop off your food." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And it was the darnest thing. He was like, don't go, stay a little bit longer." Like, I was always the one usually doing that, you know,
Wow.
when he would go to
Yeah.
work, he'd be like, "Don't go, don't go." And I used to like grab his one arm and like he was doing it to me. And I'm like, I was like, "You never, like, he never, like he was never like that." But this morning, he just like,
Wow.
"Oh," it's like, "Don't go, let's just stay in bed." And I'm like, "Okay." He was like, "Oh, but I have to go to this, thing." And I was like, "Look, I'll see you at the cookout soon. Like, we'll be there soon." And so, yeah, and we ended up leaving. Oh, I did have a few like parking, like not parking tickets, the speed light tickets. So there was like three of them. And I'm like going downstairs and there's three of them and he has them on the table. And he was like, "Look, Bev, I'm gonna pay these two." And he puts it in his back pocket. He was like, "This one, you pay it. It's the least expensive one, right?" And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." He was like, "Yeah, I'll take care of the other two." So there we are. He's in plain clothes in his unmarked. We're at the red light, and he just looks over at me and does the little rascals wave. He always did that. And I look back at him and I did the same thing. I'm in full uniform, Mark Cruiser. And he turned right, I turned left. And I ended up running an errand. And then I'm going to my station, to my special assignment. And as I'm going, I always turn the radio on to the area that I'm in. So I'm obviously going into the area, and that's when I started hearing like all this commotion. And it's just like shots fired, shots fired, they're shooting at the station. And it was just like crazy. So immediately, I'm lights and sirens.
Yeah.
And first thought was Jakai, you
You
know?
were at the station that they were shooting
That's
in
where my
front, right?
special assignment was. Yeah,
Right.
that's
Okay.
it wasn't my normal station, but it was my station, for this special assignment.
Okay. And you were in the car or in the station when this was happening? You were in the
I was
car, right?
driving because I
Yeah.
had to drop off we were babysitting my brother's dog, and I
Okay.
had to go Rocky, and I had to go drop Rocky off, and my brother lived in Kentland at the time, and the station was right up the street from my brother's house. So I told Jakai, I was like, "Look, I'm gonna go drop Rocky off, and then I'm gonna go to the station." He was like, "I'll pick up the food, see you there." So I dropped Rocky off. I remember seeing my family. They were having like a cookout. They were like, "Yo, just stay." I'm like, "Yo, y'all know I gotta go to work." I'm like in full uniform. So I dropped Rocky off and I was like, "All right, y'all, see y'all later. I gotta go." Get in the car, turn the radio on, and I'm driving. And that's when I'm like hearing all this stuff. So immediately, lights and sirens. I'm only like a block away. And then I was like, fuck, like Jakai. That was my immediate thought because in those unmarked, obviously they don't have radios. They don't have me. He can't, he's undercover. So he answers the phone. Hey, babe, I'm about to be there. I'm about to turn. I'm at the light. So he's ahead of
Oh
me.
my
And
God.
I'm like, babe, no, just don't go. He's like, what? And I can hear him. I'm steering with one hand, and in the other hand, have like my phone. I'm like, look, and I'm trying to keep as calm as I can be. And I'm like, hey, look, I don't know. Seems to be like an active shooter. Somebody's shooting at the station. Just please, just don't go. And then you just hear the feedback from dispatch, signal 13, signal 13. It's like one of the detectives at the station. And signal 13 means everybody come.
Yeah.
And so that point, I just remember turning into where the station is. I'm still talking to him. He was talking back to me. Then he stopped talking back to me. And I just heard like faint, like 13 rounds, like pop, 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 like that. And I started shaking, like my heart sunk. And now my hand is like shaking. I'm still driving, but I'm trying to like, baby, like, hey, like answer me, because I heard those shots. And so now I'm like hitting my steering wheel. I'm like, babe, like, we're like, hello. And, we're trained to drive with our windows down. Again, rainy Sunday. I'm in a Crown Vic. And I'm turning into where the shooting is happening. I'm looking not only for this suspect, but I'm also mainly looking for like Jakai. Where is he? So I'm bawling in there, turned the lights and sirens off, and I heard him. I heard him screaming, police, trying to identify himself. And I had actually passed him. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, your phone was still like you guys hadn't hung up, so you could still hear him on the phone.
No, yeah, no, I don't. I think what it was he had Bluetooth in his car, so maybe that I
Oh,
had lost the phone, I like look,
yeah.
I
Okay.
could hear him
Okay.
through me having the windows down.
Okay.
Hmm. And I heard him and he was yelling, police, police. And I knew that it was him. So I looked as I'm driving, I looked back and I saw him on the ground. So I immediately like you just go straight into everything you're trained to do. We're taught that in the Crown Vic, the front hood holds the most metal. Like that's what you would use for cover. Man, I backed that cruiser up. I put it like at a 45-degree angle to have the hood shield his body. I got on the radio and I said, stop shooting at him. Where you see these lights, and I started like messing with my lights. I'm like, stop shooting at him. This is a police officer. Please stop shooting at him. I dropped the in-car radio. I pulled my gun out of my holster and I'm like duck walking back because they're like firing at him. And I threw my body over top of him and I pointed my weapon out to see like, are these the bad guys shooting him? And I looked and I just see police officers. And so at that point I just holstered and I was like, I knew what it was, but I just didn't have the capacity to deal with whatever. Now I have to cater to him. Now it's like life-saving measures.
Did you
So,
see the offender at all or no?
mm-mm,
Okay.
I didn't. I just saw police and, they had like shields and stuff, with all the things. And now I'm like, whatever. At that point, I holstered. I didn't even care if they'd have fired at me at that point. I'm just that I have to be with him. So I'm holding him and he's still like, police. police. And I'm just like touching him everywhere. And I'm like, baby, where are you hurt? Where are you hurt? And I'm like patting his whole body down. And I couldn't find any bleeding. I couldn't find anything.
And you're
And
by yourself at this point.
I'm on my hands and knees by myself. And then my boy Katz comes running down. He's in plain clothes. He comes running down and he brought his trauma kit. We're all given the trauma kit. Um, and so he brings the trauma kit out and he finds the wound on the side of Jakai right here, but it's not bleeding. It's like it's weird. So it was like at that point, we all kind of knew like this is internal bleeding. And so he was choking and he was like, police, police. And I then looked up and the officers, I guess, realized what had happened. And there was like a U shape around me and the officers were facing out, almost like shielding us from any other potential threat. And I just remember looking at him, and his eyes are rolling back. He's yelling police. And I just remember looking at him and saying, baby, I got you. I just like looked down at him like he's police. Police. I was like, baby, I got you. It's me. I got you. I got you. And he just like stopped yelling. His eyes stopped rolling. He just like looked at me like and closed his eyes. I was like, fuck no. So at that point, we took everything out of the back seat of my cruiser. They were like, whose cruiser is this? Remember, I was parked right there. So I was like, it's mine.
Yeah.
So Cats with a couple officers, they put Jakai in the back seat and I'm driving. It was just that's just how I am. Um, if anybody was gonna try to save him, it had to be me and not probably the best choice, but I was not gonna let anybody else do it. So I got in the driver's seat and I drove him what felt like the longest 13 minutes of my life.
Yeah.
And I just remember cats grounding me. I remember seeing cats like just like pumping into Jakai the whole way, just chest compressions. And we get to the hospital. At that point, I go inside. We're in the emergency room. They're cutting his shirt open and they're doing everything, trying to, bring him back. And I'm like, I got my hands on my head. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I told him not to come and I'm screaming. I took my gun belt off. I took my shirt off, my vest off. I started punching stuff. Like, I was
You were
out of,
just,
out
yeah.
of, I was out. I was completely out of it. And one of the nurses was like, get her out of here. Like, she cannot be in here like that. And I looked at her and I said, no, because when he wakes up, he's going to want to see me. He doesn't know you. And then my boy comes, like, I used to work with him. One of my boys comes and bear hugs me. One of my old squad mates, he like bear hugs me and takes me outside. And he's like, Bev, you gotta let them work on him. You can't be like that in here. Like, you gotta let them work on him. I was like, he's not gonna want to see them. He's like, I know. If you want to be in there, you gotta let them do what they do. And it was just I remember the first person I called was my sister-in-law, she didn't answer. I called my sister, she didn't answer. I called my brother, he didn't answer. I called him again. He finally answered and he's like, "What?" Like, because they're partying, they're at this cookout.
Oh my God.
And the words out of my mouth were just, "Jakai's dead. I'm at PGH," and I hung up. I didn't say nothing else. And I was just like, I hadn't gotten confirmation, but you feel what you feel. I
Yeah.
drove with hope because I
Yeah.
wanted to, but
Yeah.
I know what I felt out there. I know what I saw and what I felt. It's a weird thing to explain when someone dies in your arm, and especially for somebody you love. So I just sat there and I just remember not even, not even 5 minutes later, my brother's truck is just coming in, and I'm just sitting outside like fucking like nothing. And my brother gets out the car and he has like these watery like eyes, like man cry. And he's like, he holds my face. He was like, why are you saying that? Why are you saying that? And I'm like, because I was like, he's dead. He was like, stop saying that, man. Like, stop saying that. And then another officer that I knew very well comes over to me. He's like, Bev, I'm gonna have to talk to you. I was like, why are you talking to me? Because he's homicide. He's a homicide detective. So that's also telling me again that he's gone. And I'm like, bro, I'm not talking to you. I need to talk to Jakai. He was like, Bev. And I was like, why are you talking to me? I'm like, is he alive or is he not? He was like, "But we'll talk later." And I'm like, "Somebody needs to give me some answers, or Imma walk up in here."
Right, right.
And I walk up in there and they're trying to put me in the family room. And I also know that when we put people in the family room at a hospital, it's because we're about to give them the shit news of death. We're about to
Yeah,
do a death notification. I'm like, don't treat me like we treat people. Like, this is me. You're trying to put me in the family room, just rip the band-aid off.
yeah.
Like, I was out there with him already, you know? The chief comes and he's like, "What do you want to know?" I was like, "I want when he wakes up, I want to see him. That's what I want." And he was like, "I'll be right back." He goes and then he comes back. And my first name is Mary, and he sits next to me and he just looks at me. My sister's in the room, my parents are in there, my brother's in there, two of my classmates are in there. Our psychologist was there. And I remember the chief sits next to me and he just looks at me. He said, "Mary and Jakai's gone." And I like threw myself forward and yelled out like this big no, like no, like really loud. And the hospital's full of officers at this time. Everybody's notified. And so I still have, old squad mates that were like, "I'll never forget how you yelled that day."
Oh
You
my
know,
God.
got the notification. And I remember throwing myself forward and somebody like holding my head because I like threw myself to the floor, but they like held me because my family was holding me. And like somebody held my head so I don't bang it on the floor when I threw myself. I'm curled up on the floor, like just rocking back and forth, just screaming no and just crying like crazy. And then the hospital people come and they're like, you know, she can come see him. And they only allowed me, my parents, my brother, my sister, my brother-in-law, and my classmate to go see him. And I obviously was first. I was there with him. They're just standing right there. And now I'm like the first person to see him. And he still has like a little bit of like grass in his beard. So I start cleaning him up. And I'm just like kissing his forehead. I kissed his eyes. I kissed his nose, kissed his cheeks, his lips. And then I just like whispered to him. I was like, you gotta wake up. I said, you gotta wake up. Like, wake up, wake up. He just looked asleep. But he was gone. And my family is just like, I mean, it's like a nightmare. Because you never want your family to go through that? And they're just like, it was just wild.
And watching you was probably really hard for your family
Oh my
too,
God.
just knowing like what's next for my sister, what's next for our daughter.
Yeah,
How do
exactly.
we help? What do we do? Like, because everyone says, oh, you signed up for this, or you knew what you were getting yourself into, and no one knows, and no one prepares you for moments like this, and you don't know what's next. You don't know what to do, and your family who's not cops and stuff, and your friends, they don't know how to help you. No one knows.
No one knows. No one knows. And it's like at the end of the day, whatever job you sign up to take, there's going to be stuff that's going to happen in your respective professions that you didn't sign up for.
Right.
I don't care what kind of job you're doing. You could be a librarian. The next thing you know, you're filing books that you didn't think you had to do that. But you could get somebody can come into the library and stab somebody. Now you're dealing with something like we
Yeah.
signed up for stuff, yes, with the initial what we signed up for, right? But then there's stuff that happens in there that no, why would I sign up for that?
No.
I would not, no. Is it a possibility that it can happen? Death is a possibility any and everywhere. More
Yeah.
likely in our professions, sure. But my boyfriend, fiance dying in my arms, no. Didn't sign up for that.
And no one prepares you for it.
No one prepared you for it.
Absolutely no one.
No one. No one.
So you're in the hospital, your family's there, everything. And what happens next? Like you just go home? Like,
Uh, well,
I mean, I'm sure there was like a lot of officers that started flooding the hospital and
it was a lot. It was a lot of drama. It was a lot of stuff. It was just a lot of everything. And I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out, and there's just so many police officers from everywhere. On top of Jakai being loved for the 3 years that he gave to that agency, he connected with so many people. I think him being in narcotics was truly a gift. He got picked up earliest than anybody ever had to a specialty unit and, well, narcotics as far as I'm concerned. And had he stayed, because normally you stay in patrol 3 years and then you get picked up. That's
Yeah.
kind of protocol.
Yeah.
He was in patrol for 1 year and got picked up to narcotics. And I think
Wow.
really a gift because if he had only done patrol in Oxon Hill, only Oxon Hill would have really known him. It's a very like to itself kind of district, like division. Like that district really sticks to itself. Like they know each other, but they don't know everybody else because it's off to the side. But when he went to narcotics, he got to work with, you know, special assignment teams over here, like everywhere. He got to work with the whole county and
Everyone got to get to know him, and that's the beauty.